Hello and welcome to your Endangered Species Project overview. During this video, you will get some key information about the project as well as some tips and tricks to help you be successful. In order to find this page on our classroom website, just go to the Projects tab and click on the Endangered Species in the drop-down menu. As you scroll down the page, you'll get all the information that you need for the project. You're going to participate as part of a research team of 3, and you'll need to choose a threatened or endangered species. The species will be approved by the senior researcher, aka me, on a first-come, first-approved basis. There will be extra points for teams who pick an unconventional species. So what unconventional species means is you're picking a species that is not popular or known for being endangered, such as the polar bear or the panda or the tiger. As a research scientist for the federal government, you'll be conducting research to educate yourself about an animal's habitat, reproduction, future, history, appearance, behavior, enemies, and survival. Each team member will choose between the following roles: ecologist, zoologist, or conservationist, and complete the individual background research. Once you have successfully completed the individual research, you will work with your team to form a lobbyist group that will develop a 5-minute persuasive plan of recovery to get your animal off the threatened endangered species list. Finally, your lobbyist group will prepare and present your plan of recovery to Congress. 2 plans will be selected. A congressional vote will determine the 2 plans that will receive funding. You and your lobbyist group will research and use additional sources to design a persuasive plan of recovery and infographic for your animal. Your lobbyist group will prepare and present the persuasive plan of recovery to Congress. Congress has only allowed you and your group 5 minutes to present your team's recovery plan and convince them to fund you. Will your group get the millions of dollars needed to get your animal off the threatened endangered list? In order to be heard by Congress, your group's recovery plan must provide a written submission with citations of the information you will present and include. So this includes a brief description of your endangered animal, why the animal is important to the ecosystem, what human behaviors are a threat to the species, what are the realistic steps to take the animal off the threatened endangered species list, how long will your recovery plan take, and how much money will you need, and the infographic about your animal, which is a compilation of all the individual work. So, as far as the jobs, if you choose to be an ecologist, as an ecologist, you are concerned with ecosystems as a whole, the abundance and distribution of organisms such as people, plants, and animals, and the relationships between organisms and their environment. With that in mind, you'll research and prepare a document that includes the following items specific to your endangered species. The information you collect will be used in the team infographic you will present to Congress. So, as far as habitat, you need to put some information about your ecosystem. What is the abiotic and biotic factors that influence the survival of the species? What is the geographic distribution? You need to show all locations for the biome of your animal, where it thrives, and the locations where they actually live. This requires maps and explanations. Third, what is happening in your species habitat that has put your animal at risk? What are the biotic and abiotic factors that have been modified or lost? Then you'll focus on enemies and survival. What does the animal eat? You need to include a simple food chain for your animal, a role in the food web, the trophic level, what species, is it a predator or prey or both? And then does it have any symbiotic relationships in nature? Make sure to keep track of your sources since all the information presented to Congress needs to be referenced. So to help you with this, I included a button right here of an ecologist notes sample. So you can go ahead and click on that button and it'll take you to a student sample. Notice this person kept track of all the abiotic and biotic factors for the ecosystem and included maps along with explanations describing where the animal lives. Also, they left a whole column here on the side of all the websites they visited. This is a really good thing to keep in mind, not only are your sources here for you to revisit in case you weren't done collecting information from them, but you also have them so you can reference them later for your project. When you're on this website, it's important that you click the back arrow to get back to the website. If you click on the X, then you actually X out of the whole website and you'll have to log back in. So, zoologist. As a zoologist, you'll focus on the study of animals. Zoologists study the behavior, origins, genetics, diseases, and the life progression of animals and wildlife. With that in mind, you'll research and prepare a document that includes the following items, specific to your endangered species. The information you collect will also be used in your team's infographic that you present to Congress. So as a biologist, you're going to be interested in the common name and the genus species or scientific name. You'll want to get some basic information of the anatomy. So what color is your animal? How much do they weigh? Some pictures. Do they have fur, feathers, things like that? You want to include their lifespan. How long do they live? Special adaptations. So do they have any additional traits that make them different from their close relatives? You want to include some information about their reproduction. Do they have special mating rituals? How often do they reproduce? Do they reproduce during a certain season? If there is a gestation or incubation period, how long is that? How many offspring do they typically have? Describe the young. Do they look like the adults? Are they a different size, a different color? Maybe they don't have fur at first. Maybe their fur is a different color. We can have things like that for feathers as well. So that would be something to keep in mind. And then parental care. Do their parents, how long do they take care of their young before they go on to the wild, into the wild on their own? And then lastly, behavior. Does the species live in groups, herds, or alone? Does it have any unique or unusual behaviors? In what ways does the animal interact with humans? Is it helpful, useful, or harmful? This is another thing to keep in mind when you're trying to get the funding from Congress and trying to sway them to fund your project. Is if it's very helpful to humans, that could be a good selling point for your animal. If you notice, there's also a button down here for the zoologist notes sample. You can click on that. You can see they've taken notes on the anatomy or endangered species. Here's information on the reproduction, on their behavior. So they've kind of created a little data table where they can keep all of their notes organized. And then they've recorded all of their websites or URLs that they've used to gather each set of information. So they're very organized. Again, click on the back arrow to take you back to the website. And then we're on to the third job. So you may also be a conservationist. As a conservationist, you will work to protect animals, plants, and natural resources and to prevent the loss or waste of natural resources. With that in mind, you're going to research and prepare a document that includes the following items specific to your endangered species. And you're also going to include all this information on your infographic that you present to Congress. So, is your animal threatened or endangered, and what does that mean? You're going to focus on conservation and the future of your animal. So, what are the reasons for endangerment? Has there been a loss or change in the environment or food supply? Is the species hunted or cultivated for food or other reasons, or has it declined because of disease? There can be many reasons for a species that has become threatened or endangered, some created and some just because of a breakdown in their life cycle. Many may cite habitat destruction, but you need to give details of why their habitat is being destructed. So please keep that in mind. Don't just say destruction of habitat. You really need to include details of how their habitat is being destructed and why that's happening. So a timeline of endangerment, you need to include when your animal was first put on the list and include 4 major events in this conservation and preservation history. And I'll show you a good resource for finding some of that information. Human importance, how is your species important to humans? Is it economic reasons, conservation, or cultural? How many are left? So use different sources to confirm the number and include a population graph. So for this, you don't want to just go off of one resource. You definitely want to compare a couple different resources and look for that number to see which one is more accurate. And then government intervention. How is the government's where your animal resides or lives intended to intervene or save your species? So what have they done so far? And then again, you can click on this button and see an example of some student notes. And again, they're saving all their URLs, all their websites, where they're getting their information. So some quick tips and tricks on the first day of class. You guys are going to get into groups and you're going to pick your endangered animal and decide on the jobs for your group.